Okay, welcome to Lunar Alchemy. This is John. I'm here with Bella, as always. We're really happy to be back to be discussing today the shadow of codependence, gene key 19. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on, a brand new moon, a new Chinese New Year. The water tiger is here. Welcome to our solar members. Hello, everybody. Oh, Bella, we just lost your video for a minute there. So today we are doing a special session for this particular transit as the sun is getting ready to move on to its next stage. And part of the reason that this particular transit is really exciting is because gene key 19 holds such a direct impact on the evolution of humanity through our unfolding genetic mutation that is currently being witnessed and experienced by each of us. So I'm sure everybody is aware of codependence and how much that has been in our awareness field and for how long around our relationships. And I'm really excited to get into this topic with you, Bella, because I'm sure your perspective is going to bring a lot of interesting insight up as we sort of begin to unravel this. We also get to talk about hair. So there's all sorts of exciting stuff today. So Bella, since the last time we met, our last Lunar Alchemy session was the final, it was around the final gene key for the Rave calendar. And since then, we've had a transit of the 41, and now we're towards the end of the 19. What's been going on, and is everybody feeling the intensity of the energies happening right now?
Right, that's a very good question. I am feeling into those keeper of the wheels. We were speaking about them in the 60, the 41, the 19. I have felt like I don't really know if my wheel is held together. The way that we say that the program works is that we are living in this program, right? And there are godheads that are ruling, we could say, the different codon rings. And with the particular place we are in the wheel right now, we don't have a godhead. But these are the gates or hexagrams are holding together the wheel. So somehow we might think that the last gate is the 60, because that's the last gate before the start code on the 41, but they are actually like, it's creating the spiral where we're going round and round. So it's not like we wake up in the morning and we're in gate 41 and everything has changed, or we're dead, which would probably more be the thing with the ending of the 60. And we spoke about that last week, and that's our last time we were live. And yeah, we are 10 days later now, more or less. I have been floating, but I feel like I've been floating because I was feeling anticipation, which funnily enough is the 41 that we have skipped, And I feel for my anticipation, what's happened for me, and like now we have all the planets, we have a new moon that I actually did the chart on, so we can look at that. Although we haven't really looked at the chart the last few times, we can look at that. We have a new moon now on January 31st, February 1st, depending on where you are in the world. And we have all the planets are going to be direct in 2 days. So we have Mercury, which is the last planet that is retrograde, going direct. So there is like a push in energy. And I was speaking about it, I think, maybe already last time, this middle pillar that we are feeling with Pluto in the 60. And like we have the nodes as well in this middle pillar. So a lot of energy pushing up. And what I do feel with where we have been in a lot of individual circuitry a lot the last months, like in the top part of the wheel, there are a lot of individual gates. And now we're going to go into what is more collective. So the 41 is collective, it's sensing circuitry. And then we have the 19 that we're in now, the 13 that we're going to go into in an hour or a few hours. It's collective. So there is a different flavor of it that I believe that we are feeling right now. For me, what I felt like I was called to, it was this push to go out in the world again. And I've really been, I came here last time to Miami on the 10th of February, and I'm becoming a little bit personal now. It's 2 years ago. I've been here, I haven't gone anywhere. My life was traveling every single week, or every, you know, I was at least in 4 different countries every month before that for 10 years. Well, like, yeah, maybe sometimes I was 2 weeks in one place, but basically that was my life, and everything stopped. And I believe that for some reason too, I became comfortable with it, with the isolation. And as a Taurus, it's easy to become comfortable. And I have really been doing all my work, which was so different before. I'm doing it online on Zoom. So when I started to have like, even like those invitations of going out in the world, there was a part of me that was like, yes, I can feel it. This is the calling. It's now. And everything is starting new. Everything is going direct. You know, this is the real new year. Today's when they are celebrating it in China. I could really feel it. And at the same time, it was this resistance and also this avoidance, like even like checking my phone. I knew that, you know, that I could feel both things pulling on me at the same time. So I feel if there are places where we feel stuck or that we feel too comfortable, when this energy comes, it can be super uncomfortable. And we can feel the anticipation. And somehow a part of us can say, I'm not ready to start yet. I'm not ready to like pull and like have the car go forward yet. So that's the energy that I feel can be there for us. And maybe we didn't feel the energy pushing up through our chakra pillar, but maybe right now, because like I said, that individual circuitry is one way of feeling energy. And now when we have the 19, which is tribal circuitry, and we are going to have the 13, which is collective circuitry and sensing circuit, like the experiences we have together with other that we can make sense of and that create wisdom. It's a very different kind of pull and push. And I think that it might be because you have that circuitry in your chart, or you don't have it. So now it's in the collective. So what I feel is that we all feel the pressure in different ways, and we're all sensitive, which is the 19, right? To different types of push and pull energy. And I think it's a very good time to look at the things that are stopping you from your calling. That might sound like a cliche, but I really think that's the time right now.
It's really interesting to look at the way the moon impacts us. I always see on social media whenever there's a full moon or there's a new moon, particularly from the astrological sector, people who are deeply following astrology. Oftentimes a new moon arrives and all of the discussion is around it's time to set intentions, or the full moon is around and it's like it's time to let go, or whatever it is. And while I don't agree or disagree with those sort of ways of perceiving necessarily, I often experience that there's a different way that these energies are impacting me as an individual. And I then, of course, project that awareness to the collective and realize that while some people may be feeling a certain upwards push and feeling, hey, okay, it's time to like, you know, start a race or something, you know, like start moving in a new direction or whatever it is, other people may be feeling those energies in a very, very different way. And what's interesting to me about this particular time is how this gene key, you know, the shadow of codependence, and it's really our sensitivity to the environment around us, the people that we're surrounded by, the relationships that we've been cultivating in our lives, as well as these cosmic forces that are giving us this feeling of, okay, what's happening right now with me, and how do I make the next decision, the next best decision for my life to move forward. And I wanted to, we're talking about this way of interpreting cosmic energy. And I was hoping that today, since it is the shadow of codependence, and because the general collective awareness of codependence is in personal relationship, we might be able to examine what's happening on a cosmic level, maybe if we're looking at the new moon chart, but everything with these energies, how it's impacting how we interact in our relationships, and how our sensitivity, or our, you mentioned over a period of time experiencing this isolation. This is a form of the reactive quality of this 19th shadow, which is so impactful across all of humanity. And looking at how can we tell the difference between an impulse that is coming through us, that's leading us into a shadow expression where we may be producing results that we may not really like, and how do we become more aware of that, particularly in relationships, so that we can kind of use times like a new moon or our understanding of the planets to take advantage of the energies that are helping us move forward in our evolution. I mean, this to me seems like the entire point of astrology, of human design, of the gene keys, of cultivating a self-awareness that allows us to use the present moment in the best possible way. And how can we do that through an understanding of codependence, or of our growing sensitivity to the energies around us? So, Bella, what I want to ask you about actually is just how do you see this shadow of codependence specifically in terms of personal relationship? And then maybe we can extrapolate it to a more general way of looking at it, because I feel like so many of these concepts in gene keys that we're looking at, there's this general understanding from our shared language, but each of us has a whole set of different baggage that we're bringing to the table. And a certain word like being codependent means one thing to one person and means something completely different to another person in terms of their personal experience. So how can we get to the bottom of this one as it's impacting all of us in such a big way?
With this one, I feel like there are many different ways of looking at it. You can look at it, how did you grow up? How was it in your family? And those dynamics are going to then be recreated with your partners, because we learn a certain way of relating, and that's what stays with us. So I think that one is important. What has been alive for me the last week, when I was interacting with somebody and she has the 19 as her evolution, so that's her challenge. And with that interaction, what I saw is that codependency is often just another distraction. So what does that mean? Well, often to look outside ourselves or put our energy outside ourselves can be a way of not having to face what really hurts on the inside. So it can be a distraction from the core wound, for example, what you're really here to look at. And I think that more and more, when I think about a lot of people that are in relationships that aren't like ideal, that actually there is a codependent. Why do they stay? They stay because there is a codependency. And somehow, yeah, it feels like the perfect distraction from really doing your work or follow your calling. And it can be so much easier to make the other wrong, even for stupid things, than to look at your own. And I can see that even in myself. Like sometimes it's just much easier to be angry with the other than to really look at the things like where it really kind of like where there's friction in yourself. And I feel like the same thing, like we said before, we are all going to have different ways of distracting. But if this is something that was already there from the beginning for you, or something where you have your South Node in the 7th house or in Libra, you know, I think even astrologically, you can look at, okay, your challenge is going to be with the other. And what is it with the other? Well, often codependence is the thing, because, you know, all relationships that are not in balance, it's a type of codependency. I've read something super cool a few weeks ago where it said, if you're in a relationship with somebody who's like extremely controlling, you know, you are the most important person in the world, because they're going to scrutinize every little step that you take. And, you know, that can actually, if you come from the beginning from dynamics that aren't healthy, that can make you feel very special. Like from the outside, for somebody that doesn't have that imprint, it can feel like, oh my God, that's exhausting. Someone's going through your phone, like calling you 30 times a day, like being crazy when you come home half an hour late. But it's also a way of feeling really important. You are the most important person in the whole universe, actually. That's what all these things tell you. So if nobody even saw you when you were a child, like it can also be the opposite, you know, if you feel that, you're never going to leave that relationship. Or if you never felt loved, you are with somebody you don't even feel something for, but you can't leave that person because that person loves you so much, you know. So there's so many dynamics. And I feel, like I said, when I look at so many relationships around me, I'm like, you know, why are these people still together? But there's something that makes them be together that is better than the alternative, that is better than the perceived alternative. And that is all often something that tricks us, because you know, we don't hurt ourselves deliberately. That's right. We never, even when we cut ourselves or we stay in a super destructive relationship, we're not saying I'm going to stay here because I want to suffer. No, because there is this perception that the alternative is worse. So leaving it's going to be even worse, or, you know, not cutting ourselves to pain. Like that's how our psyche seems to work.
Yeah, it's really, I mean, if you boil what you're talking about down to its most basic biological function of our need for something outside of us in order to survive, our need for food, which is what this gene key really talks about, it becomes really like, apply that to relationships. If the person that you're in relationship is giving you food, and you have even the slightest notion that you need what you're receiving in that relationship in order to survive, there's codependence in your relationship. And so what does that mean? Is that a bad thing? Because in so, you know, like ever since, I don't know, maybe it was the late 80s or early 90s when bookstores started having self-help sections, you know, and like Oprah was on TV, and like Men Are From Mars and Women from Venus was like this, like, you know, people's minds were getting blown by this stuff back then. Whereas today, you know, if you talk about that book, it seems horribly outdated in terms of the way that we see the relationship of men and women from what we might call a more evolved perspective. But as all of these kind of movements are happening, this idea that a codependent relationship is bad has become extraordinarily prevalent throughout anybody who looks at this stuff. If you're in a codependent relationship, that equals a bad relationship. And I think that if you take that idea and apply it to food, because we're in a codependent relationship with food. It's like, are we saying that you need to end your relationship with food? Well, how many breatharians in the world actually exist? Yeah, there might be a handful. There's a few people who may have unlocked that city. I've forgotten. There's one of the gene keys speaks directly about that, of breatharianism. Anyways, the rest of us, working through our shadow tendencies and our gift frequencies, we all still need food. So when we look at, and I'm not saying that a codependent relationship is what we ought to be striving for either. It's just that the recognition of codependent tendencies or codependent relating, to me, it doesn't indicate that the relationship itself is necessarily bad. In fact, if we're able to recognize codependent tendencies within the relationships that we have, there's a tremendous opportunity to allow that relationship to grow to a new level, a new higher frequency dynamic than we may have ever explored before. And in most cases, it's horribly uncomfortable. For those of you who have never done an extended food fast, I know there's a few of our solar members who've been engaging with this. Rachel, I know you were doing a juice cleanse recently. I don't know if that also involved fasting from food or not, but this dependence on food and playing with how do we survive actually as a biological form versus what our perceived needs are. Are we going to die if we don't eat for 3 days? Are we going to die if we don't eat for 7 days? How about 14? Maybe even 21 days, or going for a full lunar cycle without food. How long can a human body survive without food? And even talking about it like that, when we're in a relationship, how long can we go without getting that thing that we think we need from our romantic partner? I don't think that's the point. It's not like let's see how far you can go without food. I think the point is to recognize that if the outside force doesn't supply you with your perceived need, that you aren't necessarily in immediate danger of destruction. And once that awareness dawns, that if my partner doesn't do the thing that I think they need to do in order for me to feel okay, can I actually be okay? And if the answer is no, then you're deep in codependence. And if the answer is maybe, that means now you have a huge opportunity. And that opportunity is to recognize within you the gift of sensitivity, which I love that. I love how many of the gene keys are put in the context of the 5 senses. And in particular, this one is related to touch. So Bella, I actually wanted to ask you about touch and how you see touch plays a role in our evolution within relationships, and can touch alone, can it raise our experience to a level where we move beyond codependence and begin to experience that level of independence associated with this gift frequency?
That's an interesting question. So touch in what way? Like why do you feel like touch would lead to that?
Well, I don't necessarily feel that it will. I'm not certain from the standpoint of this question. But in the description of this gene key, the sense that is sort of most directly brought up in this at least Richard Rudd's contemplation is this sensation of touch. And it strikes me that as an infant, when we are first born, there are a few things that a child requires in order to survive.
Mm-hmm. I think I understand what you mean now.
And one of those things is touch. An infant that is left alone and is not touched, has no human contact, will die. And not necessarily because of starvation or something else. It can't survive that way. There's been a number of sort of horrific experiments done in history. So these aren't scientific experiments, but these sort of medieval level experiments where children, infants specifically, were given what was believed to be needed for survival, food being one of those things, but they were deprived of contact. And the infants either didn't survive or became so terribly ill that their survival was deeply threatened, even though they had their nutrition taken care of, they had warmth, these sorts of things. So to me, when we're looking at the root of where does codependence come from and how does it relate to touch? Well, we are dependent on the other for physical contact in order to survive, at least as far as beyond infancy. and I have to imagine that somehow this is impacting our genetic expression. There's all sorts of studies that do show that children who have lots of physical contact with their guardians or parents, they develop more quickly in terms of developing intellect, capability, learning capabilities, all of these types of ways that human beings grow and evolve. Is that maybe?
Yeah. So from a human design perspective, touch is part of the tribal circuitry, and that's where we have the 19. And that is the way of connecting in the tribe. It's really through touch. And of course, in the intimate relationships, it's through touch. With the children that are born, it's with touch. But it can also be with the handshake. I trust you, okay? Or, preparing the food with the hands and then serve a meal to somebody that comes and visits the family or the tribe. So it's really it's there, inherent in the tribal circuitry, the touch. And often these people don't care so much about like I love you with words, like what that's really not even necessary to say, or even thank you. It's not like when I'm in Spain, when I was a child and I was in Spain, I had learned from my mom in Sweden to always say thank you after dinner, after lunch. And my dad's sisters, they would be like, we don't say thank you in this house. And my mom was like, that's the weirdest thing ever. But no, when it's family, it's the feeling being touched by love, which is being nurtured. So you don't go and say thank you. You do that if a stranger gives you something, you say thank you. But in the family, that's the nurturing that's there. So in relationship to what you're saying, from a human design perspective, some people are more prone to using touch as a connector and as a way of saying I love you. And we all know that we have different love languages. And there have been this book, I think, from the beginning, the 5 love languages, where physical touch is one of those. I would say in my case, I have very, very little tribal circuitry. I have no channel that's tribal. I have a few hanging gates. And touch is my love language. So like you say, touch goes actually beyond circuitry for the human being. We need touch. I think it's a little bit more complex than just touch can heal us. I feel like there is so much to it. So many of us don't actually have even the openness to receive touch, because we know that even in the tribes where we have grown up, there has been a lot of touch that hasn't always been a positive touch. And the tribe, like incest, is something that have existed probably forever, because we are codependent and we don't always know where to place our desire. And it can come out very much where it shouldn't come out, because that can stop somebody else from feel and heal from touch forever when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, the important thing here would actually go to somatic work and say, however you relate to touch, there is probably something to do where there are places of you where you have shut down, whether you have been touched inappropriately or not, where the body is holding on. So when you can come and you can touch those places and you can soften those places, there is absolutely a possibility of opening up and going from the contraction of the shadows to the gift frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not as simple as touch. And it's also very obvious that it's very important for us to to have that boundary when it comes to touch. It's not like anybody can touch me however they want, like there is, I think it's quite complex, the whole thing with touch. And I also know that there are many of us that have lost touch with ourselves. So then we could be codependent, expecting somebody to touch us the way we can touch ourselves. And that's kind of what you referred to before. It leads to codependent relationships. So first and foremost, I would say it's you with your body coming back to your touch and even your pleasure and your nurturing. And once you have that in place, the journey that you can do with another being of healing is amazing. But for me, it starts with you, your body, your touch, your pleasure, your openness to yourself.
Hmm. Yeah, I love where you went with this conversation, because this idea of, one of the ideas that comes up as we contemplate the gene keys is this concept of boundaries. Mm-hmm. Where do the boundaries between myself and other, between myself and you, between myself and the universe itself, where do we define that in terms of the self? And then as we increase our frequency through the process of evolution, there is this inevitable process of those boundaries disappearing, to the point where at the acidic frequencies, the one theme that I see going throughout almost all of them is that there is no boundary between self and other. In fact, even in this particular gene key, the idea of codependence, independence, and interdependence, that idea of interdependence comes from the idea that codependence and independence are actually just illusions. The interdependence arises once we recognize that there is no separation between self and other. And yet, I would be shocked if I discovered a human being who was truly in a state where that same idea, that acidic idea of no difference between self and other, didn't have a relationship with the idea you were expressing around touch, where expressing care, love, appreciation through touch can be done in certain relationships and not others. And certain forms of touch express those sort of positive experiences, care, love, appreciation, whereas other types of touch express the other side of the spectrum that we tend to experience as negative, abuse, harm, those types of things. And to me, that difference and what you're talking about, Bella, really signifies how humanity is in a process of evolution, that our egos can often get sort of like wrapped up in the idea of like, oh, we're gonna like manifest the acidic frequency on planet Earth and everybody's gonna ascend and it's just gonna be rainbows and unicorns and we're all gonna make the most beautiful, harmonious, perfect world that's ever existed in the history of the universe together, as long as we all get on board with these spiritual concepts. And it really brings it down to a direct, grounded level where we say, can we receive loving touch? Can we give loving touch in a way that others can receive? Can we walk? I mean, I was just thinking about how Thich Nhat Hanh died on the 22nd at midnight of January, and how that was like the last hours of the rave calendar, and how the 41 is this explosion of, or maybe implosion of, a black hole. It's like the very definition of Shiva or of moksha, this concept of the obliteration of self in the East, in India. And here's this being who, one of the most, there was so much that he contributed to the world, but one of the questions that he posed to humanity was, are we able to walk on the earth with peace and love in our feet? Can we walk on the earth with each step being a kiss or a love letter to the planet? It's, and to me, that's about touch. How do we touch the earth? And when we look at this role in terms of our evolution, to me, it really, I don't know, it feels very humbling in a way, because if you consider how many people would you personally lovingly touch, or within your life, with not in a sexual way, but with a true degree of soul level intimacy. I would bet that most people in the world, that number is pretty small, especially in times of the pandemic. In the last couple of years, people were like, oh my God, I haven't had a hug for months. So I don't know that I actually have a point, Bella. I feel like I just feel like this gene key is so present with us in so many ways. And for each of us who may feel as if we're free of codependent relationships, we have a healthy, thriving romantic partnership. Okay, wonderful. That's great. Does that mean that we're free of the shadow of codependence? I'm not so certain about that. And so to me, that doesn't mean that we're bad people or that we're in a bad place in our evolution. It just means, wow, what a huge opportunity that we have to develop this gift that that is coming upon humanity, and I believe is one of the primary transformers, one of the primary things that will transform the human experience from what it is today and what it has been in the past to the vision of the future that so many people are so excited about today as we see the changes that are happening in our world.
Yeah, so I feel like we are a little bit disorganized today, and I felt that in my calls before as well. And I love that, because what I was just saying to somebody before this call, like the messiness of being human, so even the fact of saying, oh, I want to live without codependency, I feel in one way that's arrogant, and in another way that is to not actually have awareness of what it is to be human. And the whole point that we have with the gene keys is that to be human is to live with the whole frequency band, the shadow, the gift, and the city. So I think that's important. Like, I don't think that the goal is to not have codependency, but I feel like the important thing here is the discernment between what is codependency and what's interdependence, because we are still one, right? We're still in the same world. We're still part of the same Mother Earth, which is an organism. And we are holons of that bigger holon that then are smaller holons, and everything is that kind of hologenetic system, as we know, where we are part of that ecosystem. I think before we end and go into the transmission with our members, I feel the other thing we haven't spoken so much about is what I see as much as a trauma response as codependency, which is hyper independence. When you don't want to depend on anything because that makes you feel, that is what triggers the trauma in you. And that we often, I see in this world today, we can promise ourselves, like, I'm not going to be dependent on anything. Maybe we come out of a relationship to a person, or even could be to food, and you're like, I'm never going to get into that again. I'm never going to eat this again, or I'm never going to have somebody that, like, it's very much like what comes, how we take different steps, and then the pendulum has to swing to the other side. And some people from the beginning, they're just like, no, I could never trust anybody, so I'm going to be hyper independent. And for me, that is sometimes a shadow that we don't even see as a shadow. We see like, wow, that woman, she's so independent. She doesn't need a man. That's very much in the Western world today. So to also include that at the same frequency as the codependence. And there's something more I wanted to say about that. There is something again about that it's not really about any way out from it, is what I feel. For me to look at the places where I'm so independent and where I don't want to need anybody, for me, it took me in a conversation with a friend yesterday to the question, am I afraid of receiving what I really want? Because I keep kind of stating my independence. So, what's deeper than that? Like, that question again might sound like a cliche, but like, what's deeper? What's beyond my need for independence or my need for relying on somebody else? What's the deeper layer here? And I feel it's not to not have it. It's not to, it's really to understand the dynamics and even go deeper, because we are always going to have this, we rely on others or we resist relying on others. It's part of the human experience.
Yeah, I think what you're bringing up is something that I love the way that it relates to the particular gene key that we're in the solar transit of right now, gene key 19. But the topic that you're bringing up overall, it's so present with every gene key, which is that the shadows are extraordinarily subtle. And the way that they impact us throughout our own personal evolutions is extraordinarily subtle. Now, of course, sure, we might look out into the world And we might every once in a while come across an example of a person who is exhibiting the straight up repressive shadow or the straight up reactive shadow in the world, and it's stark and obvious, and you're kind of looking at it, I'm like, whoa, that person is really, you know. But to what you're saying, Bella, that hyper independence, that need for independence is just that reactive shadow, that isolationist. And you know, I've spoken to a few people this week who have, and even myself, you know, how often do I express through my body and my choices a need to isolate myself? I need to be isolated from the environment that's going on around me in order for myself to feel okay. This is codependence. This is a reactive nature of this shadow frequency. But that doesn't mean that isolating yourself from environments that feel harmful to you is a bad thing. So what you're saying, Bella, that I really, really love and I think is so important and maybe really challenging for our egos to get wrapped around within the context of the gene keys, is that rejecting the shadow is never the way. That you can reject the shadow, but it won't lead to your evolution or an experience of freedom or a releasing of the suffering that you're experiencing. It will always lead to more. And so how do we engage with these experiences of shadow frequency without rejection, but also while opening up an opportunity to move into a new experience that we may be driven to seek out? And you know, I think that's one of the real geniuses of the method of contemplation. It offers that opportunity. But I want to bring this towards in the direction of our transmission, to say that this gift of sensitivity is truly a way in which we can embrace the shadow without rejecting, not only in ourselves, but particularly in others. Because as that gift of sensitivity manifests through our experience, we begin to recognize the needs of others in a deeper way. And that allows us the space to have compassion for whatever another person's experience or expression might be. Bella, do you have any final comments for our Facebook crew or about that? I kind of want to get into talking about hair a little bit.
Now, here or later?
Anytime.
I mean, I have a few things, but nothing super important. So maybe I'll write it in the chat for the people inside. Go with your hair thing, because I know we are already like 10 minutes to the hour. So let's do the hair thing.
Okay. So for those of you who have been watching our discussion on Facebook, who have been tuning into Lunar Alchemy discussions, we are completing our trip around the entire calendar. We've missed a couple along the way, but we've got almost all of them. And now we have close to half of every session is available through Unlock Your Design on a session by session basis, where you can receive the transmission that is connected to each gene key transit and the discussion of the shadow. So if you're curious about that, you can comment below or explore through the link in the comments. Each week we do offer a quantum energetic transmission to our members to assist in the integration of all of these energies and to contribute a collective raising of frequency for our individual and collective evolutions. So click on the link in the comments to check that out. We're going to talk about hair moving forward with our members and move into the transmission portion. So we will look forward to seeing you in a future discussion. So have a beautiful day, and we'll see you. Our next discussion's just going to be on Thursday, so we'll see you then.